Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome inside another edition of the Pay the Bills podcast. I'm Mike Bunt, joined alongside AJ Sobalski and Carson Hayek. We are a week and a half away from the NFL draft, which means there's a lot to talk about regarding the Buffalo Bills and where they will go with pick number 26. AJ, Carson, how are you guys both doing tonight?
I'm doing well. As I see Ricky Scoops, he got his post deleted from Twitter. Ricky Scoops is like a private dog insider. He's probably my favorite insider in social media history. And he leaked a Will Anderson contract yesterday, and then I got deleted and taken down. And it was going to reset the edge contract market. So as the weeks have really gotten closer to the draft, I do feel like a cost-controlled edge rusher is the way to go. And we'll get to that down the road here. But I think that with the way that position and the importance of it and the way the market's going, and the Bills, Javon Solomon, Landon Jackson. What other guys do they really have that are cheap? They're paying Bradley Chubb. They're paying Greg Rousseau. They paid AJ Epinesa. Like, they need a cost control guy. So I know we'll get to that, but I just want to give my quick thought that I think as we get closer here, edge rusher is the way I think the Bills should go in the first round.
We're about 10 days away now, maybe less than that, from the NFL draft that happens. We're definitely getting to that point in time now where we start to hear some rumors, some reports, a little bit of smoke where there's fire type of deal. So I'm really curious to see maybe how some of these things start to pick up and some of these rumors start to pick up as the off season, as we near the NFL draft, I should say. Specifically, maybe if there's anything we hear from about the Bills, whether or not they're going to maybe consider trading back, maybe trading up, who knows, or areas where maybe they're looking to target specifically. But collectively, I think defensively is where I've stood for weeks now. Defensively, they need to get better. They're not where they need to be yet by any stretch of the imagination. And I wouldn't mind an edge rusher at all. I also wouldn't mind a one-tech. I know the kid from Ohio State's pretty solid. And we'll talk about linebacker, secondary. We'll get to that too. But there's so many spots right now where I think they can go, and that's kind of been a little bit different than maybe in past years where we've been, eyeing either a wide receiver or maybe an edge rusher, and it's kind of been not necessarily obvious where we're going to go. But this year, I think there's so many more variables and question marks that are out there about this team, and I guess in a way that kind of makes the draft a little bit more fun for Bills Mafia.
Yeah, and it's a weird draft because for the past 5+ years, as long as Josh Allen has been elite, the NFL draft has been all that Buffalo sports fans have been focused on during the spring, because obviously the Sabres haven't been that good for the longest time, and you look forward to watching football. It's been weird this year. The Sabres have gotten all of our attention. We've been focused on their division race, obviously winning the Atlantic, and the Bills have kind of taken a little bit of a sidestep. They're kind of in the back burner right now, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world for the Bills. And then you factor in new head coach. We really don't know what they're thinking. Is it going to be a continuation of what we've seen Brandon Beane do during the Sean McDermott era, or are we going to see a new version of Brandon Beane trying to get guys that fit what Joe Brady and Jim Leonard want? We don't have those answers right now. There's a lot of speculation that obviously with the 3-4 defense that Jim Leonard runs, that the Bills are going to have to try to get guys to fit Leonard's system. But we don't even know what that system might necessarily be. There could be changes to that, given how Leonard wants to run things in the pros versus what he ran things at Wisconsin in college. So that I find very interesting. But let's talk about some of the positions of need. We're going to talk about just some prospects that we do like today, and then eventually get into a simulation of what we think could happen for the Buffalo Bills. AJ, I think we all know probably the top 4 positions everybody's been talking about lately. It's defensive tackle, it's edge, linebacker, and then if you look on offense, wide receiver. You kind of mentioned a little bit of where you're leaning. Why is that? And are you open to other ideas besides what your lean is?
Yeah, I think edge rusher for me, it's still like I just go through the same thought experiment every year, and I reflect on this Bills team, how they've built their defensive line, what they've done to try and fix it. And I'm not saying that, it feels like they got scared because Boogie Basham was a failure. AJ Epinesa didn't really live up to what he was supposed to be. And Greg Rousseau, he is what he is at this point. Like, I'm ready to say that Greg Rousseau is what he is. I don't think there's that next level that he can get to in his career. That's just a player he's going to be in the NFL. So I think that might have given Reed some hesitation in drafting guys early, on top of he probably had belief in the guys he drafted to have success early, that those edge rushers he attacked. And then on top of it, then he tried to attack it through free agency and bring in Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was great. He started the year good, but as the year went on, an older pass rusher, the spark kind of fell off. Same with Von Miller. I mean, it was due to injury, but Von Miller started the year really good, older veteran free agent signing, and then it kind of tailed off. Same thing with Joey Bosa. I remember you telling me, and a lot of Bills fans believed, Mike, through 4 weeks that he was a better signing than what Von Miller was, and then late in the season, he couldn't even. He could never contain the edge, but he would make enough splash plays in the pass rush to make up for that, and that totally declined and disappeared from his game. So I look at that; they've really tried every way. I think you've got to go back to the draft. I think the market in the edge room, you're not going to find one in free agency. You're just not. So you have to go the draft route. They don't have the cap space to go and sign one. They could try and swing a trade and give up a lot of draft capital. But when you're tight against the cap, you don't really have that ability to send draft picks because you have so many needs to fill or depth spots. So I would lead edge just for the fact that they need one and they need a cost control guy who could be an impact player. A couple names: Arvell Reese from Ohio State, 6'4", here at a 4.46 at the 40. Just a man of chaos, right? He can play really anywhere on the defensive line. He can line up anywhere. I don't know where these guys are getting drafted, but these are just a couple of names I like. Had 6.5 sacks last year. He can line up as a defensive tackle. He can line up on the edge, so he gives you that versatility. Brandon Beane loves that. He look at Michael Hoyt. He signed him just for the versatility piece, so they like that. I don't know what Jim Leonard wants, but definitely an option. Also, the 3 Texas Tech kids. There's 3 Texas Tech guys that are coming out, and David Bailey is one of them. He had 14.5 sacks last year. He might go top 10. I don't even know. I'll figure out more of this mock draft. But he's a guy I really like. And then also another kid from Texas A&M, Lee Hunter, just a powerful interior lineman that had 20 pressures from the interior in 2025. So those are a few names I like. I don't mind versatility, but I'd much rather have, and this is my preference, I'd much rather have the technical pass rusher over the guy with the potential. I'm not saying that if they go that route, I'll be upset. Like, potential is always good, but I'd rather have the more well-rounded, more nuanced, more technical, better pass rush move defensive end. And I know they haven't done that, so we'll see if the philosophy switches. But that's where I think they should go round one, defensive end or edge rush or whatever you want to call it.
Carson,
yeah.
Where are you?
Collectively, I think you bring up a good point. Every time the Bills lose in the playoffs, it seems it's because their pass rush, majority of these games, have struggled to finish on sacks. Whether that's against Mahomes that we've played, where he just extends plays, keeps plays alive, or times that they've lacked to get pressure. It just seems like in times of need, the front four, your edge rushers, they seem to disappear in the biggest of moments sometimes. And it's also something to keep an eye on with how Beane has drafted the defensive line along with edge rushers. Certainly hasn't been his strength to this point. There's been a few nice pickups, nice ads, but nothing where it's been like, well, damn, here we go. Like, Von Miller was a great pickup until the injury. Like, he was really performing well. And since then, when they've attacked through the draft, it's been just difficult for them to really hit the nail on the head. Greg Rousseau was a great player, great run defender, but as far as a pass rusher is concerned, there's still some stuff to be desired there, I think, with production. So I certainly wouldn't hate going edge. Like AJ was talking about the financials of that. That is certainly an area where if you can, it's like almost in a way having a rookie quarterback. An edge rusher is so valuable for your team. They can hide a lot of the mistakes that you have behind you, especially with a defense like that we have, where maybe we don't have the most talent. If we can make up for that with maybe one player who is a real stud, obviously it's difficult when you're drafting towards the late first round, but if you can make up for a player on the defensive line that can help you not have as many mistakes in the back end by getting to the quarterback quicker. I think that's a really, really big thing, along with the fact that, AJ, you brought it up, just the cost control is a big thing. After that, initial rookie deal, they're going to go get paid. And that's something you can only have so many players get paid so many big times, get so many contracts. So I certainly would love the edge rusher area. But at the same time, though, I've been on this for a long time now. There has been times in the past where Bean has drafted scheme over fit, scheme over talent. And this year, I'd like to see them go talent over scheme, just best player available at this point, whether that's wide receiver, whether that's secondary, linebacker, defensive line. You really have a ton of options to choose from besides like 2 or 3 skill groups. If there's an offensive lineman in there that you're really, really infatuated about, certainly couldn't hurt. I get the offensive line is incredible, but right now I'm kind of in a spot where whoever that player is who you think has that, I'm a little bit different than AJ in this, whoever that player is that you think relatively has a safe floor, but can hit the highest potential and can immediately make an impact for your team. That's who the guy who if I was in the GM spot, who I'd go with this year.
Yeah, I'm best player available, just like you are, Carson. I don't care if it's defense or receiver. If it's one of those 4 positions that we just mentioned, edge rusher, linebacker, D tackle, wide receiver, give me the best player who has the biggest chance of contributing right away for this team. I still believe the Bills are in a Super Bowl window where with the right addition, this team could get to a Super Bowl, win the AFC, and really take that next step. And with Joe Brady taking over, there's going to be differences with this team and how they operate. I'm not willing to concede that. It's going to be same old come playoff time. And really, what it comes down to me, and like I said, this is going to be the opposite of what most of Bills Mafia is thinking. They're more than one really good player away from fixing this defense. Now, some will say, well, you need to get one to begin with and then get other guys to add on and then hope to have a good unit. My belief is I don't think they're going to be a great defense no matter who they add in the first round of this year. And if you're looking at from a this year perspective, I think a wide receiver has a chance to add more upside. You look at it 3 years in a row in elimination games that the Bills have been eliminated in the playoffs. The offense has had a chance to win the game with the ball in their hands, and they haven't been able to execute. In 2 of the 3 years, you could say Josh Allen didn't have the right dogs as weapons to really make the plays. Prime example, Brandon Cooks doesn't catch the ball. That leads to an interception. I know, Bills Mafia, we can debate about was it a catch, was it an interception, whatever. But even the year before, Amari Cooper wasn't good enough. Stephon Diggs the year before that doesn't make it a crucial catch. I need Josh to be given the guys he needs to take this team to the next level. And there's actually a lot of financial a lot of financial incentives to drafting a receiver in the first round. And from a development side, it makes a lot of sense too. You got to look at it like this. Khalil Shakir is your slot guy, and he's going to be a good slot guy for years to come. You're set there. DJ Moore is a really good receiver, but what are you getting out of him? You're probably getting 2 years of pretty solid production. I'm not even going to say elite production, but let's just say he gets 70 to 80 catches the next couple of years and gets around 1,000 yards. That's great. But you know what I want beyond Khalil Shakir and DJ Moore? I want another guy on a rookie contract for the next 4 years who has the ability to expand the field, be explosive, and that's exactly what a Casey Concepcion is. That's exactly what a Jordan Tyson can be. Get that third receiver so you can spread teams out. You still have Dalton Kincaid, who's dynamic in the slot. But if you get a Casey Concepcion or a Jordan Tyson, assuming that he falls due to some of the concerns with him, guess what? Now you have a guy that's not going to bear the weight of everything on his shoulders the way that we kind of forced Keon Coleman to bear the weight and wasn't ready nor talented enough to accept that responsibility. And so the first couple of years, if you draft a Casey Concepcion or Jordan Tyson, they get 40 catches for 700 yards as a rookie, and they're just a big play threat, you're still happy because they're doing exactly what you want while DJ Moore gets the volume, Khalil Shakir gets the volume. And then 3 years from now, or whatever, when you move on from DJ Moore, that guy's ready to be your number one receiver, but he's on a rookie contract, and then you can use money at other positions of need. So it makes sense from a not rushing a guy into a massive role. It makes sense from basically giving Josh all the weapons, and financially it makes sense. So like receiver underrated makes a lot of sense in the first round if you land the right guy that you believe can be a fix. Also probably means then the Keon Coleman, but like, so be it. I will say this too, though. I like the idea of edge. I like the idea of defensive tackle, and linebacker makes a lot of sense too. If I'll throw this out there, the one position we didn't talk about is linebacker. Is pick number 26 too early to go all in on a Malachi Lawrence, going all in on a CJ Allen? Would you avoid linebacker in the first round? I know there's some talk that linebacker is the defensive equivalent to running back in the first round, and you just don't rush to overpick it when you can get quality ones in the second and third round and later.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the linebacker position in this defense with Jim Leonard is going to be, I think, a lot different than what the linebackers are asked to do with Sean McDermott. So I don't know what you do. It depends. Like that's where I get worried because I think Terrell Bernard is an overrated player, and I think it's well known that I think many people are starting to feel that way about him. So would I take one late first round if it's the best player available? Heck yeah, I would. I think Matt Milano's still unsigned. He hasn't even found a home yet. Who knows what's going to happen with him? Dorian Williams, again, at times, he's a great downhill player. But if you're playing zone defense, I do not want him anywhere near a tight end or a slot receiver. So I don't really trust him in the coverage, in his coverage ability, excuse me. So, yeah, I would go linebacker. I think it's a valuable piece to a defense. And people could say it's interchangeable, and Terrell Dodson had a really good PFF score and all this nonsense about tackles and all that stuff. But, I mean, you look at if linebacker was not valuable, Tremaine Edmonds wouldn't be where he's at right now. He was not a player that – he was a player that came out super young, and he got paid a lot of money to be that piece, and he wasn't good enough. So clearly linebacker is, an essential part of a defense. If the guys are getting paid and if they're not performing, they're being cut. And that, he didn't get an extension in Buffalo, and he didn't last in Chicago. So linebackers are a premium position. They mean a lot to a team, and I think that, you got to go out there. They're still getting paid more than running backs, and I just think with the linebacker room and how it is right now, I don't see how you couldn't take one at least in the top 100, even if you trade back. I mean, you got to add a guy somewhere. Unless you think Shaq Thompson's your answer, you get him back on a cheap deal. But after the way he played last year, are you really going to be able to afford that or want to commit to a guy that's even older with injury history? I don't know. I feel like you got to get younger at that spot, and you got to attack in the draft to get a rookie. So again, I'm kind of flowing a defensive oriented draft, but that's just how it feels with the way the offense looks right now.
No doubt at all. It's tough with linebackers because I do feel that and this goes for most positions, but specifically I think running back, wide receiver, and linebacker, an argument for safety too. But 85% of them are all kind of relatively in the same talent level. They can all do similar things. To a certain extent, can be a dime a dozen. I do think linebacker, though, like there just isn't a ton of depth. I know, Bunt, you brought it up last week about Joe Andreessen. Like the time is now. Now it's like we're past the feel-good story part. It's if he's going to be more than just a special teamer, I think the rest of his career, I think this is going to be the year that you're going to see him maybe get in on some plays. But there's definitely room for improvement at the linebacker position when it comes to Terrell Bernard. What are we going to do with Shaq Thompson? Is maybe Matt Milano going to possibly return? Dorian Williams, like how do we plan on using him in the new defense? There's just so many questions at this point in time. No doubt about it. I think your first, either your first or your third round pick have to be in the linebacker department, or if you go out and you sign a veteran, that's one thing. And maybe you can stall a year and get a guy in the middle rounds. But there is zero doubt in my mind. CJ Allen's a guy that comes to my head a little bit that they're going to have to target the linebacker position, because if they don't, you're extremely thin as it is. If your starters don't play well, you're in trouble. And then if you have one or two injuries, you're really, really in trouble. So it's something that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. After all, your Mike linebacker, if you're going to go that route specifically, he is your quarterback, your defense. That was your Terrell Bernard last year. And you need a little bit more from him. So certainly there's big question marks with that whole linebacker group. But I do hope that they attack that early, whether that's the first or the third round. maybe they go multiple at that position, maybe one early, maybe one middle, maybe they do one middle and late. We'll see how that goes, but I think they are very well aware that linebacker is a position that they're going to have to target.
And I think you kind of got it perfectly. It's linebacker and running back are tough, not because they're not positions of need. You need good linebackers and solid running backs. It's that there's so many solid players, and what differentiates sometimes the great from the not so great, it's not always the biggest margin. So it's not that you don't need these guys, it's that you don't want to overreach when there might be other positions that have a bigger variance or bigger difference between good and bad overall. I'm open to linebacker. I think we've seen in this Bills defense when they get great linebacker play, how much it can make a difference. But now switching over to Jim Leonard, there's a lot of questions about how things will look. Before we get going to our mock draft simulator, wanted to bring this up. Obviously, Pay the Bills brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. Always a great place to grab a slice. Let's go to both of your favorite prospects in this class from a Bills perspective. Obviously, like Fernando Mendoza isn't going to be a Buffalo Bill, and there's a couple other guys that are going to be top 10 picks that Buffalo has no chance. Who is your can't miss guy that you are just praying falls down to 26 and think could be a realistic option for the Bills?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm going to go with Dylan Cousins here. No. My prospects, I don't really know if sorry to not answer the question, but I don't really know if I have one. As long as it's a guy, because I'll be able to diagnose it once they make the pick. And if it's a guy that I can feel, and I know you're talking about we're going receiver and having that guy down the line. And if you can get a Casey Concepcion and he's the big play target and you have the volume with Shakir and DJ Moore, I get that. But I want more of an impact out of a first round pick. I don't want to wait 2 to 3 years down the line to have that volume production, because I think the wide receiver room already has 2 guys in Shakir and Moore. And then if they believe in Coleman like they say they do, and then you add in a Joshua Palmer they gave $12 million to, I've always been go after a receiver early. And I'm not against it. I'd be excited about a Casey Concepcion. But it seems like now they've already paid Joshua Palmer a lot of money. They gave away a second-round pick to get DJ Moore and paying him over $20 million. And then you're going to spend another first-round pick on a receiver when you already have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. That's just hard for me, and James Cook. I don't love it just because of the immediate impact. The reason I want to go defense, yes, it's more risky because the receiver, even if he's not great, you can hide him a little bit and prepare him and get him ready for down the line. I just think the defense or defensive line is just so important. And as long as it's a guy that I can diagnose, look at what he's good at, look at what his weaknesses are. If I can see that he can bring that high floor and be that immediate impact player with obviously some potential to grow throughout the season and be a game changer, or at least a guy that can affect the quarterback in January, that's really all I'm really asking for. Arvel Reese, I don't know where he wants to go. That'd be the name, but I'm sure he's going to go pretty high. He's an Ohio State defensive tackle, and he's versatile, and he had 6.5 sacks last year. He's one of the best pressure players in the league or in college football. So that's really my spiel. I don't really have a dream guy, but just looking at the receiver position and looking at the defense, I would definitely lean defense just from the fact of how much they've put into the wide receiver position now, and I think they're set there going into this year.
Yeah, I last week I talked about Caden McDonald a little bit. Defensive tackle, absolute tank from Ohio State. A guy who could play your one tech, clogs a lot of gaps, would be a good run defender. But I guess for the purpose of this, and I just talked about defense the whole time, and I think that's probably realistically where they go. But just have a little bit of fun. I think Jordan Tyson's a guy who, if we're going to go a wide receiver, he's kind of in a way, the guy I'm a little bit infatuated with. AJ's got a bunch of reactions today. But he started his career at Colorado, had over 1,100 yards 2 years ago at ASU, and then 700 yards last year. I think he only played 8 or 9 games, but certainly a guy who checks, I think, a lot of boxes. I know Bunt talked about it. Just to get a guy that is an absolute playmaker for Josh Allen. He can do a lot of different things for you. He's got the 6'2", 200-pound build, decent build for a guy, good athlete too. And you look, played number 7 Texas Tech this year in October, had 10 catches, 105 yards. Certainly a guy against TCU too. 24 team in the country at the time, 8 catches for 126. A guy who's rose to the occasion multiple different times. And I think that's a really, really good thing to see, especially when we have talked about in positions in the past when the Bills have struggled. For example, edge, sometimes at wide receivers. When it comes to the biggest games in the playoffs, those players don't necessarily rise to the occasion. I'm not saying that they flunk either, but at the same time, if you can have a guy who just becomes an X factor when the lights are the brightest, I think that's a really, really great thing to have. Jordan Tyson could be a guy who it might take him a year or two to get into the system for Joe Brady. Joe Brady, not a guy who loves to have your, perennial wide receiver one, just with his target share and everything and how he rolls with his offensive philosophy. But a guy who I think could really, really be interesting, and certainly a guy with the ceiling. I'd love to see how he could work with Josh Allen.
I hate you, Carson, because that was who I was going to go with. And I know a lot of people will say it's unrealistic. There are rumors that Jordan Tyson could fall a little bit due to some things, but Jordan Tyson is a top 10, top 15 pick caliber player. And if he falls to the Bills at 26, I don't hesitate for a second to take him. That's a guy that I would immediately go after for a lot of reasons. I'm also a big fan of Casey Concepcion. I like the idea of what he brings to the table. And it's not because he's from Rochester, New York originally, or said his dad is a Bills fan. That's just a bonus on top of all the other stuff. But if I'm going defense, and it's hard because, AJ, this is the thing I kind of struggle with. You mentioned how you want to go edge rusher because you're tired of the years of going after veterans that have started out strong and basically fallen off late in the season, like Leonard Floyd and Joey Bosa, and then obviously Von Miller had his injuries. My concern is, I think at pick number 26, you don't know what you're getting out of an edge rusher. Like you're getting a guy that's talented, but you don't know if you're going to get high-end production, if you're going to get mid-level production. Greg Rousseau was a late first-round pick, and by all means and measures, like he's a very good, productive defensive end. But if I told you, AJ, that you're getting
I disagree that he's a very good, productive defensive end.
No, what I'm trying to say, though, is like most people would say Greg Rousseau, late first-round pick, is tremendous value. If I told you right now you're drafting the equivalent of Greg Rousseau at pick number 26, you probably aren't taking that right now because you're not viewing that as enough high-end pass rush ability. But most people would say value-wise at that pick, that's a tremendous value. So this is where I struggle. I don't know if you can say with any certainty that edge rusher is going to be the guy that's going to help your defense take the next level. I think linebacker might be one of the safest picks because you know what you're getting out of most of your linebackers at that point in time. And to be real, I'm kind of intrigued by a Caden McDonald if they go defense. And it's because he has the ability to be a run stuffer. And I do think having guys that play that role is important for the team. But that's when you go back to rotations. What percentage of snaps does he play as a rookie if you draft him? Is he playing 30, 40% of the snaps? At that point, he's not even giving you as much value as what a receiver could at that point. So I think the moral of the story is you're not fixing this defense with 1 or 2 picks. You're fixing this defense by hoping that the scheme improves and that based on having hopefully a different philosophy that in time maybe that surprises opponents and can get you over the top. But like the way you fix this defense, in my opinion, is volume. Getting a bunch of quality depth players, getting guys in the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round that can challenge starters. And then after a year, building and figuring out what you need. I don't expect the defense to be really good this year, regardless of what happens. I'm not saying it can't be, but it's not my expectation. So that's why I would kind of lean wide receiver if Tyson or Concepcion are around. But like I said, I'll be fine with a bunch of these other guys. Now let's get to the fun part of this, guys. We're going to do a mock draft for the Buffalo Bills. So I got this up right here. I haven't been hosting in forever. So hopefully this isn't a complete disaster with me trying to do this here. But I'm going to get this going here once I actually find it. Let's see here. Got that. So I'm gonna set this for 7 rounds, but we don't need to do all 7 rounds. I'm sure once we get to like the 5th round, we're gonna be just grasping at straws with some of these guys.
Well, that'll be me in the 3rd,
but we'll just keep it going. So we're gonna obviously be the Bills, and we're gonna get this thing going here, and let's see how this ends up going. And hopefully it's somewhat realistic.
Oh, Jeremiah Love.
So I'm going to pause it at pick 10 with the Bengals right here. And you can obviously see some of the picks here. Fernando Mendoza, number 1. That makes sense. He's obviously going to go to Vegas. David Bailey, I think that's one of the edge rushers we were talking about.
AJ, you brought him up.
There goes my dream.
Yeah, he's going to be a top 5 pick. He's a stud. Arvell Reese, number 3.
There goes my dream.
Yeah, everything AJ was hoping for is already destroyed. Cardinal Tate is one of the receivers I love, but he's going to go high in this draft. And Jeremiah Love, one of the best running backs. If he goes top 5, you're talking about one of the best running backs in quite some time. So that'll be exciting to see. And then Caleb Downs, this as number 10 to Minnesota. I know Caleb Downs.
Ohio State.
Yeah, a lot of Ohio State. I know Caleb Downs will never fall to the Bills at 26, but that's one of those guys where he would be so amazing to see in a Bills jersey. Has all the makings of a future star in the NFL. But
what does this website have for the number 1 team need? What does that say?
For number 1 team need, what are you talking about?
Edge.
Yeah. So let's keep this going here, and we'll have it go to about pick 20, and then we'll kind of break this down a little bit more. So let's go 10 through 20. Jordan Tyson, 11 to Miami. Now that would hurt you, Carson.
Yeah. He's not going to fall to Buffalo, but if he's there 18 to 22, I'd definitely make a move up. But it depends at what cost, So
yeah, and if he ends up going to Miami, that'll just be pain on top of it. Seeing him wear the rival colors. Then Malachi Lemon to Mekhi Lemon, pardon me, the Rams. A couple other names here. So we'll keep this draft going, then we'll pause it right before the Bills pick. Okay, so oh my goodness, that's how it would go. That's how it would go. Casey Concepcion, 25 to New Orleans. If that happens, I'm going to lose it. Not because I think the Bills are actually going to draft him, but more so because my own hopes and dreams will be shattered right before that pick. As we can see some of the guys, Denzel Boston, 23 to the Eagles. I know there's been some mocks that think the Bills could consider him. I really don't think a guy like Boston is in play for the Bills. And then Peter Woods out of Clemson at 24. So right now, it's our time to pick, guys. And I don't know if you guys can see the whole thing here. Some of the top guys that are showing are Omar Cooper, receiver from Indiana, Caden McDonald, defensive tackle, Ohio State. You got some offensive linemen. Then obviously Miller from Georgia. Let's see some of the other guys.
Ty Simpson.
Yeah, I don't think the Bills are going quarterback in the first round, but you never know. CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. Avian Terrell out of Clemson. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he has some first-round draft buzz. Chris Bell, that's a receiver a lot of Bills fans have been following closely, but feels a little bit too early for a guy like that. What are both of your thoughts right now at this point of the mock draft?
To me, it's Caden McDonald. I think he's your guy. Amari Cooper Jr., he's a really, really good player. Kind of a weird trajectory with how his collegiate career has gone. Not a ton of production in college, but certainly a guy, who a lot of people love. If it was up to me right now, I think Caden McDonald, we've already talked about how we want to be defensively focused unless somebody falls to us. I think he's the guy that makes the most sense, especially the fact that he was a premier run stuffer at OSU and the Bills were 31st last year against the run. So I think that's your perfect fit and ideal circumstance.
Hey, AJ, what are you thinking?
I mean, none of these guys. Would you be willing to trade back? Like, could you propose a trade? I mean, I don't know. That's where I'd be at right now if I'm Brandon Beane.
So for the sake of this one, we're not going to do a trade. But tell us why you would be a fan of trading, and what do you think the Bills would need to get out of it to make it work?
I just think that they would need to try and not recoup the DJ Moore pick because you're not going to trade really back unless you trade back far, like unless you're trading back like mid-second. But I just want to get another pick back there, just for more darts because I think more darts is better. Especially in the late first. Like you're in the late first round now. Like I don't see like we talked about like a receiver taking a few years to develop. You talked about like an edge rusher. Like what's that really going to be? So I almost feel like here you trade back. They did it with Keon. They got an extra pick out of it. They did it a few other times, but I just feel like with this board and how it's laid out, I like Kaden McDonald, but you drafted Deion Walker last year. You have Ed Oliver. I know they do need some help there, but I do have some belief in Deion Walker to be a good player for this team. And I know he's not the best run stuffer, and he's more of a, I'm not going to say like a skinny build because he's obviously a big guy, but he's got some pass rush juice. So I look at that. I just think, well, I feel like I could get a run stuffer later in the draft that could provide maybe some similar value to what McDonald does. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if McDonald is the man. So yeah, I would trade back.
I like the trade back idea in this instance, just because I do want to recoup some picks, and I see the sense in that. For the sake of this exercise, I'm not going to pretend what a fair trade would be. If you had one guy out of this list, who would be the guy? I know, Carson. You said Kaden McDonald. Would you have somebody, AJ?
I'd pick McDonald.
Okay, so for the sake of this one, we'll pick Kaden McDonald. And this is not to say I don't have belief in Deion Walker. I think you can have a world where you have Deion Walker, Ed Oliver, and a Kaden McDonald, and you could have a very good defensive line potentially in this scenario. Obviously, Ed Oliver's strength is going to be pass rushing. Kaden McDonald's strength is going to be more in the run stuffing game. I think it's good to have linemen with different strengths on your team. They're not all playing 100% of the snaps. They're all going to be part of a rotation. So I think this is something the Bills need, especially last year. I think was the first time that we really saw how their run game just impacted their entire defense. We've talked about the new age NFL. All you have to do is stop the pass. Well, it turns out if you get run on for 5.5 yards per carry, you can get destroyed. And that happened a lot to the Bills at times last year. Just want to get to a couple comments. John Roberts said earlier, I doubt either receiver is there at 26. Well, you're exactly right, John. Concepcion out at 25, and then Tyson went to the Dolphins. And then Dr. Neal, the bottom line for me, I don't trust Brandon Beane doing a draft. All pros, and he picked almost 60 guys. Brandon should have yep. I mean, that's a fair point. There's a lot of merit to Brandon Beane. Probably should have gotten the axe as well, but he is part of the organization going forward, and he's going to get a chance to prove himself in this draft right here. We're going to take Kaden McDonald. Let's see what I got to do to actually select him here. I'm so bad at this stuff, Carson.
Kaden McDonald.
Yep, click him.
Okay, got him clicked here. Do I?
Well, hold on. You might have to. Or you clicked the Bills before, right? Like you're the Bills GM.
Yep.
What if you clicked resume?
No, hit the right thing. Hit the yeah. No.
Well, this could be an interesting mock draft, guys.
Click resume draft and see if it goes to you.
Oh,
snap of a finger.
So okay,
let's
discuss this quick. You trade pick 26 and 91 for 42, 57, and 73. I think you take this.
Dropping 16 spots down is tough. I don't like it. It's just at that point it's quality versus quantity. I do get 3 picks in the top 90, maybe 4 in the top 90, but to me it's just I would go to 30, 34 probably max.
So here's my thought, Carson. What have we said about the defense?
You need darts on the defense.
You need volume.
Yep.
this gives you that opportunity. You're on mute, Carson. Can't hear you.
I'm not on mute.
Oh, but so you get the extra second round pick. Now you have 2 second round picks in an early third, and all you had to give up was pick 26 and 90.
Let's see the other 2 trades. Let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see what they're offering.
Yeah, let's see this. To me, that's like nothing.
I mean, I would, because you get an extra 5th for. I mean, I don't like unless they pick McDonald, but
Yeah.
And then
I mean, that's significant to me. I think that's my favorite one out of all of them. I dropped 2 for an extra 100 spots in the mid to late round.
There we go.
That's they might have me on that one.
But look at the value though. The Bears are offering you the highest value.
Oh, no doubt. You're giving up the most, but you're getting the most.
Yeah,
back.
exactly. That's tricky.
I would do that trade in a second, dude. With how the board played out, that's all.
Do you love Caden McDonald that much, Carson, where you don't want to move back 16 spots?
16's a lot, though. It's just a lot, Like, I get we're getting a decent chunk back here, and it's tricky, Me personally, I would have taken that third trade. That would have given us a free 5th, basically, for an extra 2 spots back. But
AJ, which one are you taking?
First one.
God, I'm the tiebreaker here.
Yeah, you are.
I'm sorry, Carson. I'm normally on your side, and I'm not doing this just to make AJ be nicer to me. But I feel like this draft exercise will challenge us more on our knowledge of second-round picks.
Yeah.
So we are going to accept this and then challenge ourselves with picks 42, 57, and 73.
All right.
Because if we don't do this one, we're not picking for another 65 spots.
Yeah.
And this mock draft will be over pretty quickly. So let's just accept this Bears pick. I'm sorry, Carson. And then we're gonna challenge ourselves in a second. Omar Cooper off the board.
I'm there at 28.
Terrell.
At 42.
Okay, CJ Allen.
Oh,
Caden McDonald's still there?
Yeah.
Oh! Damn it!
Oh, yep, do it again. No.
Damn it!
Keep back it up.
Damn it. Carson, this is just
Well, I got boned on that one.
wow. I'm rejecting both of these.
Yeah, time to pick.
Yeah. Man.
Well, that's fun.
Well, Christian Miller, Georgia guy, Georgia known to have a solid alumni come out for D-line. He's fallen here to 42. Anthony Hill's another guy who a lot of people like as a linebacker. I know you just scrolled past him for a brief moment. I would have loved Caden McDonald at 42 because that would have been an all-time fleece, but that's tough.
TJ Parker's had 21.5 sacks in his collegiate career. In 2024, he had 11. Had a little bit of a down year last year, but he's 6'3", 265.
Cassius Howell and
a lot of people, yeah.
He's a dog.
So, Cassius Howell could be
Skylar Bell linked to the Bills as well, that wide receiver, but not here. Obviously, that's too early.
I like the idea of Cassius Howell. Malachi Lawrence makes sense. Miller makes sense out of Georgia. Where are you guys leaning right now?
I'd go Howell. Or Miller. Those are my 2 guys.
AJ, where are you?
I would go TJ Parker or Gabe Jacobs.
So
wow.
I chose you the last time, AJ, and I got to make it up to Carson. So we're gonna go Howell here, and nice burst Guy was a playmaker. I think this would be an exciting addition for the Bills if you can get this guy at this point in the draft at 42. All right, so Miller goes the very next pick, and then
Jacobs, there he goes.
And then let's see anybody else that might be.
Love a wide receiver here. If we can get
Joshua Josephs, what a name.
You know, the Rams, it's a 2027 for
Reject.
Yeah.
Reject. Ooh.
That's actually a good deal, but I don't know for the purpose of this if we take that.
Yeah, we don't want to do a million trades, so we'll just reject these right now.
Anthony Hill Jr.
He's a beast.
Draft.
Skylar Bell too.
I saw it, yeah.
I think we would say in this spot, knowing that we have another pick later in the, I think, early third round, what's the bigger need here? Do we go Anthony Hill Jr. or do we go receiver?
Let me tell you. Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. Good athlete, 4.51. He actually was the second most athletic linebacker in the combine. So if the Bills are targeting athletes at the position and just want guys that can really move and hit hard, he's a guy that brings that. He played at Texas, started every game. He was the finalist for the Buckus Award. He had 3 forced fumbles. He had 7 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 picks. He did miss 2 games, but his NFL comp on here is Bobby Wagner, 3 down linebacker. I swear to God, 3. I'm not joking. His comparison.
Bobby Wagner's gonna be a Hall of Famer. I don't understand. That's a crazy.
Dude's a 57th pick in the draft instantly compared to.
Hey, we'll never forget this guy. Okay.
Well, you know what? That review just solidified.
We're going.
If he's Bobby Wagner. Like, okay, we're taking Anthony Hill Jr. I might just buy his jersey and put Wagner on the back of it. We're taking Anthony Hill Jr. here at pick number 57, and then we got a little bit of a wait to 73. Pardon me. Bell goes off the board. I was hoping he would drop, but not the end of the world there for the Bills. And let's see who else falls off the board in the meantime.
This is interesting.
I like this, Sam.
I mean, that Ravens pick makes a lot of sense. Should we accept it or just move on?
You can just move on. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at some of the guys that are available right now. So right now, what do we got? We have an edge and we have a linebacker. We have not focused on any offense so far. A guy that has some intrigue is Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. That's a guy that at pick 73, I could see being in play for the Bills here. I don't know if there's any other names that kind of catch your eye at the current moment.
Surratt, but that's not going to be in the play.
Yeah, good player, though.
He is a great player.
James Madison in Indiana obviously won a national title.
I get it's FCS football, but Lance, 2 years in a row where he's had over 1,000 yards. He averaged 21.2 yards a catch last year. Like that's pretty crazy. Definitely a guy.
That's like Alec.
That's like Alec Pierce. Yeah, I knew where you were going with that.
Yeah, he's a guy who could fit too. Like right now, the Bills don't have a guy necessarily who's gonna. I guess you could have DJ Moore. Is the guy who's gonna blow the top off the defense. Mecole Hardman. I mean, I don't know if we really count him.
I do not want to hear Mecole Hardman again. I don't. I don't.
I like Bryce Lance here a lot. I think this is a spot where you get an explosive receiver at a good cost who has high upside, but you can develop properly.
Sold.
All right, we're going Bryce Lance. So, this is the last time that someone can say North Dakota State FCS program because they are now part of the Mountain West going forward. Okay, so there we go with that. Next pick is 126. I'm sure by the time we get to that point, we're going to be grasping at straws with these guys. We are not one of those podcasts that pretends to know every single one of these players. But
That's okay.
You know, it is okay.
Me
I
too.
always tell you this every year, AJ. I watch more college football than 90% of people, and half of these names I have never heard of in my life. So whenever people start talking like they know every single one of these players, I'm like, you must be the ultimate con man. Unless you're Mel Kiper or Todd McShay.
Even him.
Yeah, unless you're one of those two guys and your job is literally watching film. If you have a full-time job, you are not knowing about every one of these players because you are not watching North Dakota State football or Kentucky or Louisiana Lafayette or whatever you want to call any of these schools. No chance. So now let's go down to pick 126. At this point, do you really care what direction the Bills go, or are you just trying to find people that can potentially be developmental prospects or special teamers at this point? What are your thought process, Carson, then AJ?
Right now, I still think you're looking defense, no doubt about it. But if there's somebody whose potential that you've talked about in the scout room is really high, and at this point, you can definitely afford to take some risks. If there's somebody who's been battling injuries, or who maybe a year or two ago, so when it came out, they would have been projected a little bit higher. That's what I look for, along with guys who have a track record of success, no matter the level, whether that's FCS, Division II, FBS. Division II is probably a little bit much, but guys who got it done at their level, like Malachi Fields could be one. If you're a team looking for maybe a quarterback, Nussmeier could be another guy. Obviously, it doesn't work for the Bills, but those are things that I look for, guys who have the track record of success. At the end of the day, you cannot replace production regardless of the level sometimes. And sometimes that's the stuff that carries over from one league to another, even if there is kind of a little bit of a skill gap.
So is there anyone on this board right now, either of you would be a fan of, or I obviously we're seeing a lot of wide receiver. We just took a receiver in the third round, probably not adding another one in the fourth. What would you guys probably go? Maybe get some offensive line help. You could get cornerback help. Obviously, fourth round, you could still find some corner depth at this point in time. Safety help. Still, any names that you guys would want to pick that you've seen on this board right here?
I have seen Overton's name, LT Overton, the edge rusher. We already drafted an edge rusher, but I've seen his name come up a little bit. If not, I wouldn't mind a secondary, help in the secondary a little bit, whether that's corner, safety. I think that could be
an elite name. I would draft him.
Let's I'm gonna just take the top corner here, just because I think corner, you can never have too many.
Can you
corners.
click on what? Click on him. See what it says about him.
This is an amazing name right here.
Okay.
Pick range 74 to 138, 16th rated cornerback, decent PFSN grade. That's a fancy grade. I would say at this point, you just draft a corner to get a developmental guy, somebody that can fit in. I'm going to select Masses, and then Bills fans will have some fun with his name once he's in Buffalo. And then no pick to 165. The rest of this draft, honestly, we could just put on basically just auto draft it and see what it does. But we'll have it go and kind of just finish that off in a second here. Always an interesting exercise. Once you get to this point in time, it's more about what is your knowledge of the later round guys and how much football have you watched? Because a lot of these guys are not players that are going to make impacts right away. They're more depth pieces, special teams guys, but they still have the ability to make a difference. We've seen, obviously, Bills players in late rounds make huge impacts in the past. Christian Benford won FCS All-American out of Villanova. Obviously, we know about Khalil Shakir being a day 3 pick out of Boise State. Kyle Williams back in the day was a late round.
Johnson,
Aaron Johnson. State.
So this is where the real scouting happens, where you're trying to find your diamonds in the rough. And let's see if I think for now, I'm going to. There's really no point keep going on. We're going to be just grasping at straws. But if I told you our haul for the Bills this draft was Acacius Howell, Lance, and then you got obviously the linebacker from Texas. How are you feeling about that draft class, specifically the first couple rounds?
You start with an edge rusher and Howell, which I certainly like. You address the wide receiver position with Lance, who's an absolute burner. You get a corner a little bit there. You could see the shape of guys who have some potential of what they're doing. Like Lance, a guy averaging over 20 yards a catch, had 17 touchdowns 2 years ago at NDSU. And get they're kind of an FCS powerhouse, but still, like guys who have gotten it done at their level, especially at the wide receiver position. You don't necessarily need him in the lineup to begin with. Corners, again, you said you can never have enough corners. At the end of the day, you're just throwing darts at the dartboard, and then Howell's the guy who you hope to have some contribution in at least in the back half of the regular season, I'd say.
You know, we're all laughing because there's a chat going on, and some funny things were mentioned in the chat, and I'm not gonna mention what was just discussed, but you know,
it was a fun experiment, man.
Yeah,
it's such a different year for mock drafts because every year of the last 5 years we've been so invested in these, and all the Bills Mafia has been, and just I think a lot of people just needed an escape from the Bills this offseason. The falling short against Denver, the way it all unfolded, the firing of Sean McDermott, bringing on new coaches, the new stadium, everything. I just think everybody just needed a pause from the Bills for a little bit. And with the Sabres being as good as they have been, this draft has kind of come out of nowhere for me personally. But it's still fun to talk about. I'm still excited for next Thursday. We're going to have one more pre-draft show next Tuesday where hopefully by then we have a better idea of some of these day 2, day 3 prospects. We have a good idea for the most part of the guys in the first round, but it gets a little difficult beyond that. But before we wrap up, obviously the show brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, always a great place to get a slice. Any final thoughts, AJ, Carson, about the draft, where you think the Bills are, and anything that you want to get off your chest?
Somebody brought up Red Murdoch in the comments. I don't know why.
I like that as a late. I think that could be a later round guy. I
do too. I was in the gym the other day, and one of the TVs had him on. I think it was ESPN maybe or something with CBS Sports. I was like, damn, like I'm glad to see one of our UB guys who, in a way, I guess not necessarily under recruited, but a guy who put up numbers like crazy at UB. It's good to see him get some national spotlight, I guess. But yeah, certainly a guy who I'd wonder if they maybe take a swing on late. But defensive centric draft, without a doubt, I think is where a lot of people are leaning, including myself, including I think both you guys too. Just volume. At the end of the day, AJ, you put it best. It's a dartboard. Some of these guys in the late round, you have an idea of what they can become, but you're just hoping that you can maybe hit on a little bit of a gem. We've seen Bean have actually a lot of success when it comes to late round picks as far as how they can contribute. Hopefully, though, this is the year where they can have a ton of success with some of those earlier rounds too. And I've said it, with how we are in the cap strap, how cap strapped we are with the cap space, this is kind of where you really have a chance to separate yourself from other teams that are in similar situations that are also contending. If you can have your rookie class have an impact as much as possible and have some significant plays from them at significant times, this is the time when they're on rookie deals that you really, really can build something special, and hopefully that stuff translates down the stretch of the regular season and when it matters into playoffs, assuming the Bills make it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll repeat myself. I said it last week. I'll say it again right now, and I'll say it again next week. This is the most important draft for Brandon Bean. Just the toxicity with the fan base and the relationship they have with him. I mean, not a personal relationship, but the relationship they've built because of his inability at times to maybe draft the right players or extend the right players or extend the wrong player. There has been some issues with that, and rightfully so. I mean, I was a big Fire Bean guy toward the end of the year just because I thought I just didn't believe they should ever fire just one. They came in together, they should go out together, and they both failed. So this is a big chance for him to turn it around, and if he can do it, and if he's the guy, he's got to prove it, and we'll see how he attacks it. Does he get aggressive? Does he try and trade up and get a guy he wants, or does he, try to throw more darts like we did in our mock draft and kind of stick around in those middle rounds and try and hit on some guys that can make an instant impact and hope they can elevate, the team overall. So it's going to be fun in a couple of weeks to see how it all plays out. And I'm hoping that Brandon Beane makes the right decision, because I think there's a lot of naysayers, and those will only get louder if those guys don't show up at training camp, and it kind of goes into the regular season. It's not going to be a good thing. So overall, I just think they need to do a good job in this draft, because the clock is ticking for Brandon Beane. And I'm not saying McDermott was the scapegoat, or a lot of McDermott people are coming out saying like all this stuff about him, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of questions left unanswered, and we won't really have those answers again until January if they make the playoffs. So it's going to be a long stretch, but this is the beginning of it, and this is their start to really change their philosophy, what they want to do, how they want to play, their mentality. This is where it begins with the new rookie class, and how they establish that move forward.
And just as important as this draft class for Brandon Beane and the Bills is, can they get some contributions from last year's draft class beyond what they've seen? Obviously, Maxwell Harrison looks like he's going to be solid, but we need to see him in a starter role this year. He won't be behind Trey White anymore, or at least it appears that way. I wouldn't have Harrison behind anybody, and it appears the Bills don't think that way about having someone in front of him. TJ Sanders, that's a second-round D tackle. He needs to step up this year. We already talked about Deion Walker. You have Ed Oliver. But if the Bills drafted a D tackle, like early rounds, you need to pair that with TJ Sanders taking a step, and then maybe your defensive line has some potential. Landon Jackson, you need to get him on the field. Like he even went healthy last year, he was a redshirt player. That didn't add much value.
He was so raw. He couldn't.
Yeah, you can't be in a championship window. You can't be throwing darts at guys that aren't even good enough to see the field in the early rounds. Those have to be guys that at minimum, at least they're making an impact and good enough to be on the field and make plays every once in a while. Maybe they're not stars, but they can't be guys that are healthy scratches on a weekly basis, which is what Landon Jackson was before he eventually did get hurt and missed the rest of the season. So this is where kind of like, if you want to have some outside optimism for the Bills defense, hope that the guys last year make an impact this year. And then you hit on a guy or two this year's draft. And then maybe that is your recipe to taking this defense to another level. A few comments before I wrap up. Carson, I always love that you have a different background every week on your show. This week it's a dark vibe with shined on you. Other weeks it's Christmas lights. The
lights I was told to retire, so those are going to be hung up for the foreseeable future. They barely even work now, and they're falling down here at Bonaventure. The walls aren't great for it. So yeah, it all depends on the year.
And then another comment directed at AJ. This is from the private chat. He doesn't know if we know who Red Murdoch is or if we've ever seen him play. He plays at UB, AJ. Me and Carson have both seen him play quite a bit. Now, I'll ask you this, AJ. How many All-Americans has UB had in the last couple years?
4.
Okay, that's way too high. But they've had 2 All-American. Actually, well, they've had 3 in the last, 5 years, which is crazy. But Murdoch was a second-team AP All-American last year. So high honors. Sean Dolak, a first-team All-American before that. And Marcus Fuqua was a third team. And then, obviously, you go back to Mac. Who was, I believe, a second team back in the day. So people say that UB has no talent, but they've had a couple AP All-Americans in recent years, which is something else. Appreciate everybody that tuned in to watch this mock draft. I know we hope it was entertaining one way or another, whether you got any value from what we were saying or any value out of the laughs with our analysis. We do appreciate anybody that tuned in, and make sure to get a slice from Picasso's Pizza. This is the Pay the Bills podcast, and we'll be back next week for one final pre-draft episode. Let's go.